boots and get haste and shroud and poison the opponent immediately. The other combo is Staff of Domination, allows Romario to gain infinite life, draw infinite cards, tap infinite creatures, untap infinite creatures, etc.
And also, you know, backup plan not too bad with cards like Steel Hellkite, Wormcoil Engine, Sundering Titan. These guys attack pretty well on their own, combo or not. And he's got a Lodestone Golem, which can certainly put the brakes on some of his opponents who may not be.
Early Lodestone Golems, early Chalice of the Voids, early Trinispheres all spell trouble for Rug Delver. Kenny Castor there on the right, getting into the festive spirit.
Yes, he
with his St. Patrick's Day themed garb.
Very excited about St. Patrick's Day, apparently.
Yep.
I mean, I was pretty excited too.
I mean, how could you not be?
Get to watch the top four. I mean, yeah, the top four this morning of Standard and the finals, and then Legacy all day, and the top 8 and the top 4 and the finals.
If he really wanted to get into the spirit, he'd be playing a green and white deck, would he not?
Yeah, I think so, or just mono green.
Yeah, green, white, and orange would have to be the third color to get into the Irish spirit.
Yeah.
So Romario looks like he's mulliganing down to 5.
So here's a question. I've seen different versions of Mud, but it's not a super common deck. It is a deck. You know, it's a known deck. Some of the versions I've seen run Cloud Post as their way to, you know, power out, say, a turn 3 Wormcoil Engine and with open mana sometimes. You know, Cloud Post obviously giving you access to a lot of mana itself. Why would someone forego something like Cloud Post to just run mostly lands that just produced 1 mana, Ancient Tomb and City of Traders aside?
Well, there are a couple reasons. The first two really good reasons are Great Furnace and Darksteel Citadel, which are artifacts to be able to sacrifice to Kuldo the Forge Master or a Goblin Welder. That's really the main reason. So Romario's going to try to lead off with City of Traders into Chalice of the Void for 1, which makes Kenny unable to cast almost every spell in his deck. Kenny says no to those shenanigans and Force of Wills that, removing Brainstorm. Nimble Mongoose is going to be the first creature on board for Kenny Castor.
Yeah, if Kenny didn't have an answer for that Chalice, he could pretty much scoop him up, because the majority of his deck costs 1, which is one of the reasons decks like Miracles are so effective against it, because typically you have Counterbalance top, and you resolve Counterbalance with top, and you're able to just lock them out of the game. So you see Darksteel Citadel from Romario will destroy that City of Traders. He passes back to Kenny, who gets in with the little Nimble Mongoose. And now Kenny's going to crack a Misty Rainforest and has a Volcanic Island to show for it. 2 open mana.
Now, traditionally, Rug decks can have a little bit of trouble with Mud decks. And Rugs can have trouble with Mud, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, there you go, tracking Mud all over the rug.
Exactly, but mulliganing to 5, not so much of an issue anymore. So Tarmogoyf, immediately a 3/4 instant land artifact. Romario finds Cavern of Souls. That's presumably naming Goblin, allowing him to play Goblin Welder.
And you're right on. There you see the Goblin Welder come down uncounterable and pass back to Kenny. So Kenny, no threshold just yet, but Tarmogoyf's pretty threatening.
It is. It's a 3/4. It's Simian Grunt sized. The 3/4 Tarmogoyf and the 1/1 Nimble Mongoose are going to rumble their way into the red zone, into Romario's life total. The 3rd green creature of the game.
Another Nimble Mongoose. Yep.
Romario's finding a lot of lands.
Certainly is. Has the Great Furnace now alongside that Darksteel Citadel, representing his current artifacts.
And he's going to pass.
He has another Goblin Welder in hand. And he's getting smashed yet again by...
More swingy beats, probably going to drop Romario to 10.
Looks like Romario's hand is Goblin Welder, City of Traders. So not much action there.
No.
And a Grim Monolith off the top.
Monolith actually will let him cast anything that happens to be dropped later on. Grim Monolith probably going to resolve here. And another Goblin Welder. Romario not having to face down an Insectile Aberration, but still 3 1/1s and a 3/4. Nothing to sneeze at. Romario is going to attempt to trade with both Nimble Mongoose. Not sure I like that. I think I would have kept one welder around. Just in case our, I don't know, near battle sphere gets countered.
It'd be nice to just have some sort of backup plan in the form of a welder, and I'm kind of surprised to let one of them, or that he lets both of them go there, but we'll see what the plan is.
Sphere's pretty late, and that's going to be the end of a quick game 1. So Kenny Castor takes game 1, thanks to Romario mulliganing down to 5.
Yeah, not a lot of hope in it from Romario from the start, and the top of his library certainly didn't help him any. But he knows what he's playing against. Kenny knows what he's playing against. If they didn't prior to this, so they can they should be able to effectively sideboard.
Speaking of sideboards, tell me about what Romario has at his disposal since he'll be on the play.
Well, just going to run down the list here because these mud decks really it's kind of like a who's who of really good artifacts.
Yep.
He's got 4 copies of Phyrexian Revoker, 1 Duplicant, 2 Ratchet Bomb, 1 Platinum Imperium, a Crucible of Worlds, a Spine of Ishsa. That's right, Spine of Ishsa. 2 Relic of Progenitus, 1 Karn Liberated, not an artifact, but he's certainly colorless. Additional Wormcoil Engine to complement the one in the main deck, and a Mindslaver. So it's got a fair number of options there.
I think that if I were Romario, I would certainly be bringing in these Ratchet Bombs.
Yep, very good against this deck.
Yep, extremely good against Rug Delver. I would also consider Relic of Progenitus to slow down Tarmogoyf and Nimble Mongoose.
That has been even when Rug was more popular. Reed Duke was main decking Relic of Progenitus to answer Rug decks, and it was very effective just from personal experience.
And in their history, decks like Merfolk have also main decked Relic of Progenitus when things like Dredge were very popular.
Right.
Among the singletons, I could see the Crucible making its way in, although I'm not super in love with that one. Same with the Wormcoil Engine. I imagine the Wormcoil Engine will come in and replace one of the more expensive big creatures that is less important, like Steel Hellkite.
That's the exact same one that I was going to suggest to trade out for Wormcoil. The life gain, very effective.
Yeah,
Rug Delver is
pretty much no way to answer a Resolve Wormcoil Engine. Going over to Kenny's sideboard, Kenny has a couple options here. If he knows or assumes Wormcoil Engine,
I think he can reasonably assume.
He can reasonably assume that. I think that Sulfuric Vortex could be on his radar.
2 copies of that.
2 copies of that one. He also has 4 copies of Submerge, which would normally be good against red mana sources, but unfortunately, Great Fern is not a mountain.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at more likely is the one of Ancient Grudge. Possibly the one of Spell Pierce.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's about it. He's also got access to Scavenging Ooze, Life from the Loam, Red Elemental Blast, Forked Bolt, and Rough Tumble.
Rough Tumble, remind me what
that is. The split card, Pyroclasm the Ground, or Six the Skies.
Oh, okay.
It's the Scourge of Care Ridges spell.
Kind of very Gruul Charmish, would you say?
Yeah.
It's related. It's an ancestor of Gruul Charm.
Sure. They're in the same vein. But certainly the only really effective card that I see out of Kenny's sideboard is the Ancient Grudge.
Yeah.
Spell Pierce probably also coming in. He's going to want to trim the Forked Bolts. Well, maybe not actually, because both Metalworker and Goblin Welder, if they can get to tapping.
So you think maybe he even brings in an additional Forked Bolt?
It's possible he could bring in the additional Forked Bolt. You know what? Yeah, I was wrong the whole time. That's entirely possible. Also, Rough is pretty rough for the 1/1s and the 1/2s out of Romario's deck.
So possibly more than
what we thought.
Yeah.
The spell snares in the main deck of Kenny's deck could possibly come out. They can counter Chalice for 1. They can counter Grim Monolith. They can counter Ratchet Bomb that's going to be coming in, but they can't counter everything.
Right.
And typically Romario's deck, especially if he goes turn 1, 2-mana spell.
Yeah.
Not great for Kenny, so he could bring those back in on the play.
Yeah, the interesting thing here is it's if the cards, the strategy that Romario wants to go with to get these giant guys into play. And Kenny doesn't really have good answers for those giant guys beyond the Ancient Grudge that you mentioned. But he does seem to have quite a few answers to the little guys that are going to be used to try to get the big guys into play. So
Yes.
Kenny essentially wants to just make sure Romario never hits something as big as, well, Wormcoil Engine. That's not even the biggest guy.
Right. He wants to make sure that, well, Kuldotha Forgemaster is the real biggest problem for Kenny Castor, because not only does it have 5 toughness, not only does it fetch out future big guys, but it's itself something that's relatively easy to cast.
There you see a Wasteland from Romario on turn 2, targeting Kenny's lone volcanic island there, but otherwise we've just got a Darksteel Citadel from Romario. Misty Rainforest for Kenny, and a Great Furnace from Romario. Taps that, plays...
Voltaic Key.
Wow, yeah.
That's an M11 Voltaic Key, I believe?
I think
Not
so.
nearly as pretty, in my opinion.
No, I like the old
as the old
Voltaic
Urza
Key.
Saga Voltaic Key.
That's the one I'm used to. There it is, Voltaic Key. It is the
Yeah,
M11
called it.
version. Yeah. I was tilting my head trying to figure out what it was.
It's pretty cool art, but I personally have an affinity for the old art.
Absolutely, that one looks very, very cool. That artist though, Franz Vollwinkle, very good artist. I think that's not his best work in my opinion.
No, it's not his best work, but we've had him on the Open Series actually, visiting and signing cards for
That's
folks
right.
selling original art.
Very cool.
Meanwhile, Kenny Castor does not find land number 2 or land number 3 actually, and instead of trying to cast a Nimble Mongoose, he wants to leave up a mana. There's Metalworker.
Yeah,
Reveal
1,
any
2 for
number-
3.
Sorry, reveal any number of artifact cards in your hand. Add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool for each card revealed in this way.
As you see, the Voltaic Key did resolve, by the way, as we were discussing the artwork.
Yep. And should this Metalworker remain in play, that could get out of hand quite quickly. So Force of Will is going to take care of it. Typically, Kenny wouldn't want to waste a Force of Will on a Metalworker, but he doesn't have a burn spell in his hand currently.
In addition, it possibly relevant, he uses Spell Snare to remove to Force of Will when he only has 1 mana, so that was actually a live counterspell that he could cast prior to drawing the Scalding Tarn. So, not sure what's in his hand, but whatever it was, he felt it was all more valuable than the Spell Snare. One of which is certainly a Spell Pierce, because I saw it.
Yeah.
And that may be, maybe he's just lacking blue spells. He has another Force of Will.
So here's Nimble Mongoose.
I see a Tarmogoyf, I'm pretty sure, in his hand. Force of Will, Spell Pierce.
We're going to go for Trinisphere here. Trinisphere, a dark steel card that has many iterations of the number 3. Basically makes everything cost 3 mana.
Yeah.
So if you're ever in doubt, you have to pay 3 colorless.
Yes.
Or up to 3.
Yeah,
If
so...
you're trying to cast Nimble Mongoose, costs 2 colorless and a green.
Right.
If you're trying to daze, it either costs 2 colorless and a blue, or return an island to your hand and pay 3 colorless.
Right, very, very
Force of
interesting
Will
effect.
would cost either 5 mana, or remove a blue card,
Right.
pay a life, and
three
pay
colorless.
3 colorless.
Yeah.
So instead of having to deal with any of those shenanigans, Kenny is going to counter it.
Yeah, he forces removing Spell Pierce, and I think he's pretty much out of blue cards, but he is going to go for the Tarmogoyf here, I believe.
Yep.
Finds
at
a
this point,
second Tropical
At this
Island.
point, he's just trying to get in the damage before anything else can happen. So Nimble Mongoose goes up to 3/3 with those fetch lands, and Tarmogoyf is going to join the board. Artifact, land, instant, creature. It is a 4/5 currently. Kenny has 10 power worth of creatures on the board.
Threshold has been reached. Those
So here's
mongooses are big.
5 mana for Kuldotha Forgemaster, the card that I was mentioning earlier. Forgemaster is going to enter the battlefield. It's going to be a 3/5. That's a big boy. And Wasteland's going to take care of the red mana on Kenny's side of the board, as well as his own City of Traders.
Yes. There
There's
you see the
Kuldotha.
Forge Master.
Yes.
Looks like Romario does have the artifacts to sacrifice as well. Tap it to sacrifice 3 artifacts and search your library for an artifact to put it into play. So he's got not only Great Furnace, but 2 Darksteel Citadels and the Forge Master itself alongside a Voltaic Key. So he's got any number of ways to do this. He can get rid of the Forge Master, or he can keep the Forge Master and Armageddon himself.
Romario is going to block.
Knowing Kenny doesn't have a red source, he probably feels pretty safe.
Right, he only had the 1 card in hand. Kenny, if he had 2 cards in hand, could have been gone like red source bolt.
Yes.
But he was in the free and clear there.
And I see a Lightning Greaves.
Oh dear. Oh no.
This could be
it.
Yeah.
So
Lightning Greaves going to come
Lightning Greaves. Lightning Greaves is an equipment that it costs 0 to equip and gives the creature haste and shroud. Then Romario is going to activate his Forge Master, as you can see, sacrificing 3 artifacts and searching his library for an artifact and putting it into play. This will presumably be Blightsteel Colossus, which is a 11/11 trampling infect creature.
Yep.
That also has more lines of text that you don't need to know about currently. He is going to equip that up to the Lightning Greaves, attack with 11 infect damage, and we're going to go to a game 3.
Yes, we are. So you can see, out of nowhere, Romario down to 10, and then just Lightning Greaves into a Blightsteel Colossus.
Yep.
Takes the game from Kenny, who had 10 power worth of guys on the board. So Romario able to just stall Kenny enough to get his combo online, and he ran Kenny out of cards there too.
Yeah, unfortunately for Kenny, it seemed like he had a few too many creatures that time. He would have gladly traded definitely one, probably 2 of those creatures for a lightning bolt that game to be able to deal with the metal worker instead of having to force of will that, because he could have force of will to Cold Oath Forge Master and put that game well out of reach.
Yes, absolutely. He did. It's nice when you draw a nice mix of your spells and not just one half of your deck or the other.
Rug Delver is one of those decks, though, that certainly can do that. In some games you draw too many burn spells, some games you draw too many counter spells, some games you draw too many creatures. It's one of those decks. It has such thin margins.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very rewarding deck to play, because everything you do right keeps you in the game, but everything you do wrong it has much more drastic consequences. So the very good players at it like it,
right?
Because they feel rewarded for playing well and using all of their resources correctly. Oftentimes, Rug Delver will win with not but a 3/2 flyer in play and no cards in hand.
Yeah, using every resource available, and this is one of the decks that runs a lot of library manipulation as well. You have the 4 Brainstorm that is pretty ubiquitous to blue decks in Legacy, but alongside 4 Ponder and 2 Thought Scour. So
yeah, Kenny actually has more cantrips than the standard lists that I typically see because of the 2 Thought Scours.
Yeah, but that's not unheard of. We have seen Thought Scour before. Not only is it drawing you a card, but oftentimes you're milling yourself to achieve threshold out of nowhere when it looks like you only have you have 4 cards in your graveyard. You can mill yourself to drop the Thought Scour in there, and suddenly those 1/1 nimble mongooses are 3/3s. So an effective way of doing that. So I'm actually surprised to see, as we were kind of talking about, the Rug Delver lists doing well. We did see one. I feel like that one may have made top 8 last week in Indy, but I'm not 100% positive. Either way, it did well.
It's not as widely played as it once was, as I was discussing with Adrian last round. It seemed like every week 3 were making the top 8 last summer, whereas now it's a little bit of a treat to have a Rug Delver pilot on camera.
Yeah.
Because it is a very interesting deck. There are so many different lines of play. There's so many different options for the deck. I actually like seeing Rug Delver mirrors because they're so skill intensive. So many sub-games are going on, but you don't see them as much anymore.
Yeah, and that's because of cards like Rest in Peace, like Abrupt Decay. So I'm almost surprised that someone would say, Rest in Peace won the Legacy Open last week. I think I'm going to play, and the week before, exactly. I think I'm going to play Rug Delver. It seems like a strange decision.
Yep.
You just feel like you're going to dodge the Rest in Peace, or just, play around it, I guess.
Well, I think that it was entirely reasonable because of the uptick in amounts of combo decks. Rest in Peace is just one of usually in that deck.
It was a two of in the main in
Alex's deck. Well, that's still not necessarily going to be seeing it every game,
right.
And it's a tempo game, so you're not going to give your opponents a ton of turns to be able to go dig and find it.
Sure.
It does have to resolve.
Right.
Also, keep in mind, if you're running Stifle in your Rug Delver lists, you can stifle the rest in pieces, come into play trigger.
Yeah, doesn't affect the future.
The future spells will still be removed, but if you already have some amount of cards in there for your Tarmogoyfs or a threshold for your Nimble Mongoose.
Yeah, you basically stifle the Tormod's Crypt effect.
Yes.
Looks like Kenny's going to 6 here. Looks like he's also struggling to stay awake.
Yeah. It's a long day for everybody.
He was definitely out last night. We passed him on the way back to the hotel, so I don't know how much longer he was out. Maybe he was. he may have been out later than he should have been. We'll say, but he was certainly celebrating.
The necklaces speak to the truth of your statement, I would think.
Well,
but hey, it's St. Patrick's Day. What else are you gonna do? Come on.
And he's winning in the top 8.
Absolutely. It's not like it's affected him.
Absolutely. Apparently. Half asleep is good enough.
To say Romario wasn't out partying last night either.
Yeah.
He just hasn't brought his regalia with him.
So Kenny's
pondering his 6 here.
Is it even 6? It kind of looks like 5.
Is it 5? Oh, wow. Oh, dear.
So while Romario to 5 in game 1.
Kenny is going to keep a no-lander.
Yeah, that is a no-lander.
Oh,
he has a wasteland.
I see.
Interesting. So you see a Chalice there on 1 from Romario, and Force of Will removing Spell Snare from Kenny. So it's still in this game, keeping the Chalice off the table. Draws, I believe, a Wooded Foothills, yeah.
Deciding if he wants to wasteland the City Traders, I think that's probably not a good decision.
Yeah, Romario will wasteland it himself.
The problem, of course, with not wastelanding the City of Traders is that it can grant him Trinisphere mana.
Instead, it grants him Grim Monolith mana.
Spell Pierce on Grim Monolith. Now, Darksteel Citadel also cannot be wastelanded. It can be targeted, but it certainly won't destroy it.
Exactly. It is indestructible. So, Spell Pierce deals with the Grim Monolith, and so far, Kenny is dealing with Romario's threats 1 for 1.
The thing is that
for the most part,
that Romario has so many more cards. He has so many more threats.
Yeah.
He's going to be able to catch up should he need to. Fortunately for Kenny, though, it looks like the cards that are in Romario's hand aren't going to kill him this turn. However, I see a Metal Worker.
I see a Steel Hellkite and Lightning Greaves. Yeah, there's a Steel Hellkite in his hand too.
So Metal Worker next turn will gain haste. Then Steel Hellkite will come in, and that'll gain haste.
There's a Forge Master as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
So, the Forge Master will... So the Metal Worker can come in and gain haste, the Forge Master can come in and gain haste, and then the Blightsteel Colossus can come in and gain haste.
Yeah. So it's not as good for Kenny as we thought. Not that we thought it was good for Kenny. Sure. We're trying to say it wasn't so bad, but maybe it is as bad as it
Now,
looks.
Unfortunately,
we'll find out.
We have Forked Bolt instead of Lightning Bolt to be able to take care of future Metal Workers.
Yeah.
He's going to keep Force and Blue Card in his hand, hoping to run Romario out of threats.
And Tarmogoyf attacks there for 3. Wasteland deals with the Great Furnace.
So this will prevent...
Well, we're going to see an Ancient Tomb here.
Could have prevented the Metal Worker from entering the battlefield. Unfortunately for Kenny, Romario still has a 2-mana producing land.
Yeah, so there's Ancient Tomb. He's going to take 2 from that to provide 2 colorless, but now he can cast Metal Worker.
I think that's also going to be met with a counterspell.
Yeah, I think it has to.
Yep, I would agree.
And there you see Force removing Delver. As you mentioned, at this point, Kenny using all of his resources, but he is the one with the threat on the table.
We have Creature, Artifact, Land, Instant.
And there you see crashing in for 4, the Tarmogoyf. Kenny with 1 card in hand plays Misty Rainforest. So now Romario can feel free to resolve whatever it is he can cast.
But he has a land, a 5, and a 6 in hand.
But he can't cast anything.
He can't cast anything just yet. Romario's deciding whether it's worth it to get rid of the green source over there.
Yeah.
I certainly don't think it is.
Yeah, when your opponent has just one card in hand, as Kenny does, you're a lot less likely for him to be able to use that mana, but we'll see. Kenny's deck is known for being able to run on very little mana. And there's a
Bolt to Romario to get a sorcery into the graveyard, bringing him up to a 5/6. Romario falls to 3. But unfortunately, Kuldotha Forgemaster is going to come in. Oh, he doesn't have 3 artifacts, though. Oh, no, he does. He's
going to have the Forgemaster itself.
He's going to have the Forgemaster itself. So he can sacrifice the Forgemaster itself to its own ability.
Right, so this is where it gets hairy for Romario, because...
I think that's correct.
Yeah, he can sacrifice itself, absolutely.
It doesn't say 3 other artifacts?
No, it's sacrificed 3 artifacts, it's including itself. So he can sacrifice Greaves, Forgemaster, and Darksteel Citadel, but that will get the Blightsteel Colossus into play.
Well, maybe he drew it?
No, I don't think he drew it, but the problem is doing that, he doesn't give it haste because the Lightning Roots is gone.
Oh,
so he's going to do it here at the end of Kenny's turn, but he's going to leave, or he's going to block Tarmogoyf and then do it.
I see.
Now, depending on what Kenny drew, I imagine it wasn't a Lightning Bolt, or else he would have just said, oh, look.
Lightning Bolt or Forked Bolt, yeah.
Yeah. And he says go.
Kenny's going to pass. So he's also...
I'm surprised he didn't do it there end of turn. Now he's... oh, okay, so Wasteland on your Volcanic Island. Romario may be playing this very smart or very conservatively, one or the other, or maybe both, I suppose. Wasteland, your other source. Kenny, of course, adds mana. And Romario should probably just... Okay, he passes the turn after Armageddoning Kenny, and now Kenny just draws and says go.
So... I would think that now would be the time.
I would think so too. I feel
Unless
like
we sideboarded out our Blightsteel Colossus. We do have Platinum Empyrean in our hand. We could have brought that in.
Right. Well, Romario's thinking. He seems to be in good shape should that Blightsteel Colossus still be in his deck, but my guess is maybe it's not. I mean, you make a good point.
Well, he should be in good shape even if
he should be in great shape if he has Blightsteel Colossus, like winning shape.
Yes.
Well, he's going off, whatever it is. He's activated the Forgemaster, sacrifices artifacts, leaving himself with just an Ancient Tomb, and there is a Blightsteel Colossus. So this should be end of turn, I believe.
I think this is the end of the turn.
Yeah. So giving it haste doesn't matter.
Kenny is going to have to chump block the Blightsteel Colossus in order to survive.
And draw off the top for Romario is City of Traders. Swings in with the Blightsteel Colossus. And there is the Tarmogoyf going away.
So Kenny's going to have 5 poison counters, and that's the game.
Yeah.
Kenny must not have had a burn spell in hand. He might have been waiting on a fetch land, possibly.
Right.
But Romario Neto defeats Kenny Castor 2-1 with mud over Rug Delver.
Yeah, and I'd say that was, you know, you look at that match and you go, well, Kenny mulliganed to 5. I mean, not that match, but that game, Kenny mulliganed to 5. Well, Romario mulliganed to